The top of the mountain was 3 hours away from where Sophie and Jacob were standing. It was a long hike back and forth. He and Sophie weren't exactly friends yet, and so Jacob was a bit unsure of the commitment that he had just made. But he was willing to put in an effort. Plus, he was excited to see the Dragon Temple and the view from the mountaintop. Jacob looked at the gorgeous view around him. Even if he and Sophie didn't get along, at least the beautiful vistas would make up for it. On the other hand, Sophie was ecstatic. She was practically running up the mountain. It was unclear whether it was because she could not wait to visit the Dragon Temple or that she was eager to outrace Jacob. Needless to say, Jacob didn't want her to get lost or out of his sight. Taking a deep breath, he sped up and followed closely behind her. "Hurry! Hurry! See how slow you are?" While climbing upwards, Sophie turned around to press Jacob to go faster. Jacob stuck to the speed he was most comfortable with, but kept a close eye on the path Sophie was taking. He was walking at a good speed, though. After all, he was an athlete and a pro at long-distance running, and knew how to properly distribute his physical capacity. Unlike Sophie, who was sprinting without saving some energy for the latter part of their journey. About a half an hour later, Sophie, who had been climbing upwards in haste, was exhausted. Gradually, she began to slow down. Going at a steady pace, Jacob had caught up with Sophie within minutes after she had slowed down. In no time, he ran past her. "Hey!" Seeing that Jacob was going to outrace her, Sophie felt that he was going to leave her behind. Jacob was only being playful. He turned around after taking a few steps ahead of her. "What? Can you not run anymore?" he said with a straight face. Sophie's face was bright red. "I just want some water." She reached her arm towards Jacob and said, "Give me some water." Jacob opened her backpack, took out a bottle of water, and handed it to her. After gurgling down half a bottle of water, Sophie threw the bottle back to Jacob, and he caught it. Placing the bottled water back in the backpack, he proceeded to climb slowly and waited patiently for Sophie to catch up. Sophie felt embarrassed at not being able to keep up after making such a fuss about climbing quickly. She slowly started to climb up behind him. She stopped making a fuss completely as she realized how nice Jacob was being to her. He had come on the trip spontaneously at her parents' command, he carried her backpack, and even readily agreed to escort her to the top of the mountain. On their way up, Jacob had been going at a steady pace and adjusted it according to his breath. On the other hand, Sophie now felt as if she was torturing herself. As she tried to keep up with Jacob, she was constantly out of breath, and her face had gone from bright red to pale white. She couldn't walk all that quickly anymore, and took plenty of stops to catch her breath. Jacob opened up the map and studied it for a few seconds. "Well, we're halfway there. At our current pace, we should be able to get there in an hour." "Oh my God, another hour?" Sophie's face was filled with despair. As she imagined having to repeat the ordeal she had just gone through, her body couldn't help but feel weak and powerless. Jacob rolled up the map and got up on his feet again. Now that Sophie had finally caught her breath, she saw that Jacob was ready to move ahead without much of a break. Her admiration for Jacob immediately vanished, and she called out to him, "I'm still with you, you know. You could have at least given me a heads up before walking again." Jacob turned around and looked at her from afar. "What's wrong?" he asked. You... Sophie was so tired that she couldn't form a complete sentence. "Do you need a break?" Jacob asked. Sophie's face had turned red from suppressing her feelings and her desire for a break. Even though she did need a break, she couldn't bring herself to say the words. She was afraid of giving Jacob a reason to mock or to look down on her. "Oh my, it does seem a little tiring. Let's take a break here then." Jacob put down the backpack and placed it on the grass. He then sat down right next to Sophie. "Well, as long as we both know that you are the one who wants to take a break. I haven't said a word about being tired," Sophie said, with pride in her voice. Her face looked pale, and she was worn out, but she was fierce and determined. They were sitting quite close and could hear each other's breath. Jacob suddenly remembered that there was a camera in the backpack. He took it out quickly and pointed it at Sophie. He clicked a picture of her, making her raise her eyebrows. "What did you do that for?" she asked. "Well, it's not every day you turn multiple hues of red and pale from climbing a mountain. It is a moment to be remembered," Jacob said as he chuckled. "Give me that camera," said Sophie and lunged at him. Jacob was squatting while clicking the picture and didn't have his feet firmly on the ground. He tumbled down even with the low impact of Sophie's lunge. Sophie was on top of Jacob, still reaching out for the camera, and Jacob continued to move his arms around to keep it away from her. They became children for a few minutes as they fought over the camera, and their clothes were soon enough soiled with mud. It was after several minutes that they realized how close they were to each other. The warmth of their bodies was suddenly evident to both of them. They looked at each other and stopped fighting. Jacob was pinned to the ground with Sophie's hands clutching his arms tightly. She slowly released her hands and began to get up, but fell on Jacob's chest. Jacob slowly held her arms and helped her up. She looked down on the ground and hid her blush. Jacob got up too and said, "I can delete the picture if you want." "No, that's okay," said Sophie, with her gaze stuck to the grass near her shoes. "Let's take a picture together then," he suggested. Sophie looked up in surprise. I just thought your mom and dad might like it if we do. I mean, they want us to get along, don't they?" said Jacob. Sophie quietly nodded and stood next to him to pose. They both smiled for the camera and immediately stepped aside after getting clicked. Promptly, Jacob put the camera back into the backpack and stood up. "That's enough of a break. Let's get going." Jacob turned around and saw that Sophie's face was bright red from trying to catch up. He thought for a second and decided to slow down. "If I had my dragon core, I could outrun you 100 times, Sophie said quietly. "If you can't climb any more, it's not too late for us to turn back," Jacob proposed sincerely. There wasn't a trace of mockery in his tone. But Sophie was determined. "Who said I couldn't climb any more? I will get to the top of the mountain for sure." Jacob's mouth curved into a smile as he actually found Sophie's determination to be quite commendable. Sophie's face was bright red as they climbed, and she was sweating profusely. Clutching her fist tightly, she abruptly took a deep breath and outran Jacob again. After that, she continued to run even faster. Jacob could only speed up and run alongside her. Just when they began to doubt whether they could make it in time, things took a different turn. As they followed the trail and walked around a big thick tree, the golden eaves of the Dragon Temple suddenly came into their view. "Ha! We made it!" Sophie shouted out of joy. She didn't hold back her happiness of overcoming the mountain. Jacob also felt delighted. He was surprised, yet satisfied to see that their efforts had come to fruition. At the same time, he was a little concerned. It had taken a long time and a lot of physical strength for them to reach the mountaintop. Would they be able to get back to the hotel by 7 as they had planned? "Bubblehead, hurry up and don't get lost." Seeing that Jacob was hesitant and hadn't moved an inch, Sophie couldn't control her excitement and yelled at Jacob like he was the one delaying them all along. Jacob grinned as he felt Sophie coming back into her avatar and followed her towards the temple.
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.